Through you, Chair, I have a couple of questions. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Brousseau. You had mentioned, of course, the crisis that we have. 50,000, I think you mentioned in that crisis, who we've lost to fentanyl. As of, I think you said 2024, I know we've lost a number since. And so you understand the seriousness of my question. My nephew was among one of those about 6 months ago. So my question is in regard to a recent article reported that a U.S. source reported that you have no authority to direct the RCMP, the CBSA, or other police services. In fact, I believe your quote exactly was, "I have no authority to direct them or ask them to do anything." Can I just confirm that that's what you said?
I don't know the source of that, but I can tell you what my authorities are as a senior official at the Privy Council office. As I mentioned in the front, is that my job is to coordinate and integrate the efforts and not to replace a minister or a deputy head, both of your that are represented here. So it is a powerful, I believe, my colleagues will either dismiss me or not on this panel, but to bring people together and bring a singular focus to enhance the efforts related to fentanyl because of the tragic stories like I hear every day about like people like your nephew and so many other people in this country.
Okay, so it sounds like that it is correct that you don't have authority over those services. It feels like the position was created solely to appease the Trump administration without any real intent. I'm hoping that I'm wondering if you can explain how do we address Canada's fentanyl crisis if you don't have the authority?
Yeah, so look, we have a number of different organizations that are tasked at that have various mandates across that complex supply and demand ecosystem that I described. I think prior to my appointment, and I'm last in line for credit and first in line for criticism. Prior to my appointment, the coordination between those who are tasked with looking at demand and providing health services across the board, both federally, provincially, and municipally, as well as the enforcement organizations focused on supply, were perhaps not as coordinated as they could have been, related to ensuring that you push on one side, it's going to impact the other.
Okay. I think I'm going to have to stop there so I can give my time to Mr. Gill.
Sure.
Thank you all for being here today. We really do appreciate that. My questions will be directed towards the president of the CBSA. So, President, in my community of Langley, British Columbia, police recently uncovered a fentanyl super lab. Authorities confirmed that it was capable of producing multiple kilograms of fentanyl each week. Given the scale of operation, how confident are you that the CBSA currently has the resources to prevent similar threats from reaching our communities?
So I'm confident that the officers and employees of CBSA are constantly looking for fentanyl, for precursors, for contraband of all kinds. And I would note the 350 kilogram seizure of methamphetamines in Southern Ontario. 1,000 new employees and new officers of CBSA will certainly bolster this, as will our cooperation with local police, with the RCMP, and per your study, our American counterparts. So the discussion with DEA and my colleagues this week, and with Customs and Border Protection, we exchange information, we exchange trends, we exchange intelligence, and we're unrelenting in that mission.
President, you say you're confident, but it's clear that our borders urgently need more support currently. The Liberal government has repeatedly promised to hire 1,000 new agents, yet the commitment remains unfulfilled. The Public Safety Minister has even suggested that it's not his responsibility to do this hiring. Based on your understanding for hiring and resources, when can Canadians realistically expect to see the commitment delivered? And I'm asking for a clear timeline, please.
Responsibility, and the announcement of $216 million, $617 million last week has certainly put a fine point on that.
What's the clear timeline?
So we expect to, over the course of 3 to 4 years, bring in those employees, those officers. And as I was indicating in my previous answer, they will be deployed internationally. They will be deployed at the ports of entry. They will be deployed into our inland enforcement and our trade operations, in our targeting and our intelligence.
President, would you agree that every day that those positions
Sorry,
that
MP
remain
Gill,
unfulfilled?
that's all the time we had for that segment. I'm sorry for that.
Thanks for coming and your brief report. We all know that the fentanyl problem is a big one and affects so many people. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're not only working with the United States, you're also working with our international partners. Can you also elaborate on that?
Indeed. Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. In fact, as you understand, and as we've already talked about, the trade in illicit drugs and fentanyl in particular is one that's transnational in nature, by definition, then meaning more and outside of Canada. As a consequence, myself and colleagues here, many are sitting at the table. Last month, we were in Mexico, where we met with senior Mexican officials, security officials, et cetera, to discuss about how we actually can work together to combat this trade. And that will culminate in further discussions trilaterally here in Canada in the next couple months or so between Canada, U.S., and Mexico. I've also had interactions, many, with European officials for the European Drug Agency. Again, trying to share best practices, understand what's working and what's not, what's the nature of the crime, what's the nature of the trade. Mr. Chair, this global transnational organized crime, in particular drug traffickers, changed the way they do business rapidly. And as a consequence, it's very important that we stay on top of it. Sorry.
Yes, I just wanted to interrupt. So what has been identified as the weakness in the Canadian system in terms of intercepting or catching those drug kingpins?
It's a complex question. That I think deserves a complex answer, or not. It's not a simple. If there was a simple answer to that complex question, to the complex problem, it would have been solved. The transnational nature of crime is that different modalities will be used at any given time, whether it's crypto, whether it's through the dark web. Whether it's traditional supply routes, for instance, there is a number of different ways that drugs move between and through Canada all the time. So what clearly what's important is that we remain in close collaboration and communication, both domestically between agencies here that are at this table and other agencies that are tasked with combating this crime around the world. Those are the important elements of why the organizations actually have to work together.
Okay. Now, so very often after your office has been set up, the administration is talking about how much the quantity of fentanyl or the precursors being stopped at the border and things like that. Now, I want to ask you for your opinion. What is more important, the chemicals itself or the people behind producing or trafficking those chemicals? And what has been the result in terms of, catching these people, holding them accountable?
Yeah, I'll let the commissioner of the RCMP and the president of the CBSA talk about number of arrests, et cetera, that they've caught. Those are their responsibilities, and they have the proper data to be able to explain that. It is a complex ecosystem with again, precursors, chemicals, as you properly described. And I will say voracious approach from an enforcement perspective, where those that are choosing to profit from death and despair are held to account. I've certainly been briefed on the number of operations, including one earlier in the winter that resulted in dozens. I'll have the number wrong, but I'm happy to give the committee the numbers from the coordinated and integrated response and organized crime. I think that's the name of CIROC. And that involves law enforcement officers from every organization in Canada, because this is a local issue and it's a global issue. And there were a number of arrests regarding to that and holding people to account.
Yes, again, I want to have the numbers of people that we caught or, we're going after. So would the commissioner, do you have the number of people?
If you're looking, Mr. President, if you're looking for the exact number of people who've been caught or arrested, I don't have those numbers with me. Sometimes they're charged with a certain offense, and there's plea bargaining, and they plead guilty to another offense. But if I go back to your initial question with what's more important, the precursors or the people, I think both of them have to be parallel inside, because the challenge with precursors are legal when they come in, and there's legislation that will allow Health Canada to shift more rapidly to make it illegal. And then the other side is you want the people who are working on it. So I would say to that question, both of them are working in parallel. We are working very closely with the FBI and the DEA to identify key companies or individuals that are involved in either the shipping or the fabrication of fentanyl.
And how effective you have been?
Pardon me?
How effective you have been in terms of identifying those people?
Well, we have a couple that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we've been successful in a couple of files in the United States as well.
Okay, good. Now I'm going back to the commissioner. So what systems are in place between your office and the U.S. agencies, such as DEA and the Border Patrol, to share information on fentanyl precursors?
Systems for information sharing, operational information sharing between those organizations exist between the organizations that are represented here, not my office in particular. My office, I work directly with the Canadian agencies to coordinate the liaison with the American agencies. So the information flows between, and Commissioner Duham and President O'Gorman can explain those processes.
Unfortunately, that may have to wait because we need to go to the next segment.